Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Life ain't easy. If you think success is just about luck, talent, or being in the right place at the right time, you got it all wrong. See, 99% of people fail and only 1% succeed. Why? Because success requires something most people aren't willing to give. Success doesn't start with money, talent, or connections. It starts with the way you think. Your mindset is the foundation of everything in your life. If you think small, you'll live small. If you think big, you'll live big. It's that simple. Most people don't fail because they lack resources. They fail because they never truly believe success is possible for them. The 1%, the ones who make it, don't wait for proof before they believe. They believe first, then they go after it like it's already theirs. Your circumstances don't determine your future, your mindset does. Too many people let where they come from define where they're going. They say, I wasn't born rich, I didn't go to the right school, I don't have the right connections, but the 1% don't think like that. They don't look at their current situation and say, this is all I'll ever be. They see where they are as temporary. They know they have the power to change their story. When you focus on your circumstances, you find excuses. When you focus on your mindset, you find solutions. It's easy to say, I can't do this because of where I come from. But successful people flip that and say, because of where I come from, I will do this. They use their struggles as fuel, not as shackles. They don't let their past hold them back. They let it push them forward. The 99% wait for the perfect conditions. They wait for the right time, the right opportunity, the right people to support them. But the 1%, they move now. They start with what they have and figure it out along the way. They know success isn't about what's in their bank account, it's about what's in their mind. You can have all the talent in the world, but the difference between the 1% and the 99% isn't talent, it isn't luck, it's work ethic. Talent might get you started, but it's your work ethic that will carry you to the finish line. Most people think that if they have the right skills or connections, they'll automatically succeed, but the reality is without consistent, focused effort, none of that matters. The 99% want results without putting in the necessary work. They want to see immediate returns. They want the shortcuts, the easy way out, the path that requires the least amount of sacrifice. But that's not how success works. The 1% understand that success is a marathon, not a sprint. They show up every single day, doing the work, even when it's hard, even when it feels like nothing is happening. They know that effort compounds over time. The 1% aren't waiting for motivation to strike them like a lightning bolt. They don't wait for the perfect moment when they feel like working. They understand that motivation comes and goes, but discipline stays. When you're disciplined, you don't need motivation to do the work. You do it because it's who you are. Success is built on the foundation of doing what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, even if you don't feel like it. The 99% fail because they give up too soon. They don't have the stamina to keep going when things get tough. They face a little setback and they quit. They think this isn't for me. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. But the 1% understand that setbacks are part of the process. They don't stop at obstacles. They push through them. They view challenges not as roadblocks, but as stepping stones. The 1% work when nobody is watching. They don't need an audience to motivate them. They don't need applause or praise to keep going. They do the work because they understand that it's the quiet, consistent effort that eventually pays off. People often look at the 1% and think they got lucky, they're special, they have something I don't. What they don't see is the countless hours behind the scenes, the sacrifices made, the work done when no one else was paying attention. Work ethic is what separates the dreamers from the doers. The 99% dream big but fail to execute. They wait for the stars to align, for the perfect circumstances to fall into place. The 1% don't wait for perfect conditions. They make their own conditions. They understand that there will never be a perfect time to start. There's only the time you choose to start and the time you waste not starting. The 1% don't get distracted by the small stuff. the noise. They keep their eyes on the prize and their hands on the work. If you want to be successful, you have to understand that it's not about how hard you work for a short time, but how consistently you work over the long haul. The 1% put in the effort day in and day out. They commit to the grind and they push through the fatigue, the frustration, and the doubt. They know that it's in the work where growth happens, and it's in the work where the magic is made. The 99% fail because they're not willing to make the sacrifices needed for long-term success. They want instant results, but the 1% know that true success is the result of dedication, persistence, and sacrifice. It's not about working hard when things are going well, but about showing up when things get tough, when you feel like quitting, when nobody's there to encourage you. The 1% don't stop. They keep working, keep grinding, and keep pushing forward no matter what. Faith and fear cannot exist in the same space. You either believe in your vision or you let fear talk you out of it. The 99% live in fear, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of stepping outside their comfort zone. But the 1%, they move with faith. They don't have all the answers. They don't always know how things will work out, but they believe that if they keep going, something will happen. That's the difference. Fear paralyzes people. It keeps them stuck in the same place, making excuses, waiting for the right time. The truth is, fear will never go away. It's always there, whispering doubts, telling you you're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready. The 99% listen to that voice and let it control their actions. The 1% hear the same fear but move forward anyway. They know that fear is just an illusion, a trick the mind plays to keep them safe. But success isn't safe. It requires risk, and risk requires faith. Faith isn't just believing when things are going well. That's easy. Faith is believing when nothing seems to be working. It's pushing forward when the bank account is low, when doors are closing, when the dream looks impossible. The 99% quit when things get hard. They take setbacks as signs to stop, but the 1% use faith to keep going. They don't need to see the whole staircase. They just take the next step, trusting that the rest will reveal itself along the way. Fear makes people overthink. They want guarantees before they start. They want to be 100% sure they won't fail, but there are no guarantees in success. The only guarantee is that if you don't try, you'll never make it. The 1% don't wait until they're ready. They step out before they feel ready. They trust that they'll figure it out as they go. The 99% want certainty before they take action. The 1% take action first and certainty follows. Fear keeps people trapped in comfort. It convinces them to settle, to stay where it's familiar, to avoid risk. But nothing great ever happens in comfort zones. The 1% embrace discomfort. They understand that growth is painful, that success requires stretching beyond what feels safe. They know that if they want something different, they have to do something different. The 99% stick to what they know. The 1% step into the unknown. Doubt is fear's best friend. The 99% doubt their abilities, doubt their worth, doubt their dreams. The 1% have doubt too, but they don't let it stop them. They replace doubt with action. Every time they push through fear, their faith gets stronger. Faith isn't just something you have, it's something you build. Every small victory, every risk taken, every challenge overcome strengthens faith. The more faith you have, the less power fear holds over you. Fear shows up in many forms: procrastination, excuses, hesitation. The 99% let these things control them. The 1% recognize them for what they are and push past them. They know that fear doesn't disappear, you just get stronger than it. They take action even when they're scared, and that's what makes them different. Most people wait for permission. They wait for someone to validate their dreams, to tell them it's okay to go after what they want. But the 1% give themselves permission. They don't need approval. They don't need anyone to believe in them first. They move with faith, knowing that their belief alone is enough. The 99% need proof before they believe. The 1% believe first, and then the proof shows up. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's a part of success. The 99% see failure as a reason to stop, while the 1% see it as a lesson, a stepping stone to something greater. The people who make it in life aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who refuse to quit when they do. Every setback, every mistake, every rejection is teaching something valuable. But most people are too focused on their disappointment to see the lesson. Most people are afraid of failure because they've been taught to fear it. From a young age, they're told that failing is bad, that making mistakes means they aren't good enough. So they avoid taking risks. They play it safe. They never step outside their comfort zone. But the 1% understand that failure isn't the end, it's just feedback. It's information that helps them adjust, improve, and come back stronger. The biggest difference between those who succeed and those who don't is how they respond to failure. The 99% take it personally. They let it define them. If something doesn't work out, they start believing they're not cut out for success. They tell themselves, maybe this isn't for me, and they walk away. But the 1% don't see failure as a reflection of who they are. They don't make it personal. They analyze it, figure out what went wrong, and try again with a new approach. Failure is only permanent if you stop trying. The 99% give up too soon. They expect things to work perfectly the first time, and when they don't, they assume they're on the wrong path. But success doesn't happen overnight. It's built through trial and error, through persistence, through learning from mistakes. The 1% don't get discouraged when things don't go as planned. They understand that every failure is just a temporary setback, not a final destination. Some of the most successful people in the world have failed more times than most people have even tried. They didn't let those failures break them. They used them as fuel. They kept going when others would have quit. The 99% look at successful people and only see the highlight reel, the wins, the achievements, the success stories. They don't see the rejections, the failures, the struggles that came before the breakthrough. Fear of failure keeps most people stuck. They don't even try because they're afraid of looking foolish, of making mistakes, of not getting it right. But the 1% embrace failure because they know it's the price of growth. They understand that every time they fail, they're one step closer to success. They don't waste time dwelling on what went wrong. They focus on what they can do better next time. The 99% want guarantees before they take action. They want to be sure that they won't fail, that things will work out exactly as planned. But that's not how life works. The 1% take risks, knowing that failure is a possibility, but they don't let that stop them. They take the leap anyway, knowing that even if they fall, they'll learn something valuable. Rejection, loss, and setbacks are all part of the journey. The 99% see them as reasons to stop. The 1% see them as necessary steps towards success. They don't let one failure define their entire future. They understand that the only true failure is quitting, and as long as they keep going, they're still in the game. The lessons learned from failure are often the very things that lead to success. The key is to keep learning, keep adjusting, and keep moving forward no matter what happens. Discipline is the key to success because motivation is temporary. Motivation is like a spark. It gets you excited, it gives you energy, but it burns out fast. That's why so many people start something with enthusiasm but never finish. They wake up one day feeling inspired, ready to take on the world, but as soon as that feeling fades, they stop. The 99% rely on motivation, but the 1% rely on discipline. They don't wait until they feel like doing the work. They do it because they made a commitment to themselves. Discipline is what keeps you moving when motivation is gone. It's easy to work hard when you're excited. It's easy to stay focused when things are going well. But what about the days when you're tired, frustrated, or discouraged? That's where discipline separates the successful from the unsuccessful. The 1% show up no matter how they feel. They don't make excuses. They don't wait for inspiration. They put in the work, whether they feel like it or not. Most people fail because they let their emotions control their actions. They do things based on how they feel in the moment instead of sticking to the plan. They say they want success, but as soon as they get tired or bored, they stop. The 1% don't let their feelings dictate their actions. They follow through even when it's inconvenient. They understand that consistency beats intensity. It's not about working hard for a few days. It's about showing up every single day, even when no one is watching. The 99% struggle with discipline because they expect instant results. They put in effort for a short time, but when they don't see immediate success, they lose interest. They start looking for shortcuts, quick fixes, or an easier way. But the 1% know that real success comes from long-term commitment. They trust the process. They don't rush results because they understand that great things take time. Discipline is about making sacrifices. The 99% want success, but they also want comfort. They want to reach their goals without giving up anything. But success doesn't work that way. The 1% are willing to make tough choices. They sacrifice distractions, bad habits, and temporary pleasures for long-term rewards. They understand that every decision they make is either bringing them closer to their goal or pulling them further away. Most people struggle with discipline because they rely too much on willpower. They think they can just force themselves to do the right thing in the moment. But willpower fades, especially when temptation is strong. The 1% don't just rely on willpower. They build systems and routines that make success automatic. They create habits that remove the need for decision making. They set up their environment in a way that makes discipline easier. The 99% make excuses. They blame their circumstances, their past, or their lack of resources. They convince themselves that they can't be consistent because life gets in the way. But the 1% don't look for excuses, they look for solutions. They take responsibility for their actions. They know that discipline is a choice, and they make that choice daily. The difference between success and failure is simple. Are you willing to do the work even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when no one is there to push you? The 1% don't let excuses win. They don't let temporary emotions dictate their long-term success. They understand that discipline is the bridge between goals and achievements. It's what turns dreams into reality, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. Risk is the price of reward. The 99% want success, but they don't want to take risks. They want security, comfort, and guarantee. The 1% understand that every great achievement requires stepping into the unknown. They don't wait until everything is safe before they move. They take the leap, knowing that risk is part of the process. Most people fear risk because they fear failure. They ask, what if it doesn't work? What if I lose everything? What if people laugh at me? But the 1% ask a different question. What if it does work? What if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams? What if this risk changes my life? They focus on the possibilities, not the fears. The 99% play it safe. They take the predictable path, the one with the least resistance. They choose jobs they don't love because they're secure. They stay in situations that don't fulfill them because they're comfortable. They never bet on themselves because they're afraid of what might happen if they fail. The 1% take calculated risks. They weigh the options, but they don't let fear stop them. They understand that nothing great comes from staying in the same place. The truth is, life itself is a risk. There are no guarantees in anything. You can work a safe job and still get laid off. You can stay in your comfort zone and still struggle. Playing it safe doesn't mean avoiding failure. It just means settling for less. The 1% refuse to settle. They'd rather take the risk of failing than the risk of never trying. Taking risks doesn't mean being reckless. The 1% don't just jump without a plan. They prepare, they strategize, but they don't let overthinking stop them from taking action. The 99% get stuck in analysis paralysis. They spend so much time thinking about every possible outcome that they never actually do anything. The 1% take the first step, then adjust as they go. They trust themselves to figure things out along the way. Fear of risk is what keeps most people trapped in mediocrity. They never start the business, never take the opportunity, never follow their dreams because they're too afraid of losing. But the 1% see risk differently. They know that every risk carries a lesson. Even if they fail, they gain experience, knowledge, and resilience. They know that each risk they take makes them stronger, smarter, and better prepared for the next opportunity. The 99% wait for the perfect moment. They tell themselves, I'll take the risk when I have more money, more time, more experience. But the perfect moment never comes. There will always be uncertainty. The 1% know that waiting is just another way of saying no. They take action now, knowing that they can adjust and grow along the way. Risk is what separates the dreamers from the doers. The 99% have dreams, but they keep them locked away because they're too afraid to take a chance. Knowing that success requires stepping outside of comfort, they don't just think about what they want, they go after it, knowing that the biggest risk of all is spending a life wondering what could have been.